Yo, what up? It's your man, Evrak, Raheem, and all the other things with another episode of RQ. First and foremost, I want y'all to, for the few people that have subscribed, I have a new channel because the other one was my personal like YouTube. So I created a whole new channel because I'm gonna like commit to doing a little what I call my little emo podcast. Really just me talking to myself mainly, but a few people have listened, so that's kind of cool. So subscribe here if you subscribed on the other place. Apparently, I couldn't make them one podcast on my personal YouTube account. Anyway, so I created this space to do this. So hopefully you guys come over here, take a listen and see what's up. And with that, so for those who live like a non-monogamous life or in the poly community or even swinger community, all those type of things. The word capacity comes up a lot when you talk about because you're dealing with multiple people, multiple partners, multiple dynamics, and sometimes instead of saying capacity, you'll hear the word polysaturated, which I think is a really really fun word, polysaturated. So it just means that you got a lot of people, like as far as the relationships that you can handle, like you're at your max. And that's one thing. But I want to talk about just life capacity, which encompasses relationships. So even if you're in a monogamous relationship, if you're married, single, dating, whatever it is, relationships come under the full capacity of which I'm talking about. Something came up yesterday in my life and I just had a moment. I had a moment of I had a moment of feeling over capacity. Of course, you talk about the other word is overwhelmed. So capacity and being overwhelmed, if you're over capacity and being overwhelmed are basically the same thing as far as I'm concerned. However, a thing happened yesterday. I was reading the text and it just annoyed me, and it just felt like in a life that already has, say, 100 things, and I'm filled to the brim, whether it's by my choosing or the world choosing for me, I felt like it was one thing too many. And it made me want to ask the question, how are y'all handling life? I mean, I talked last week about abandonment, and that was very specific. I was talking about a specific thing, a specific trauma that a lot of people have. A lot of people, I talked last week about a lot of people in my generation, especially a lot of men in my generation, especially have. But now I want to talk about the overarching kind of issue is a matter of capacity. And again, something like abandonment or your traumas feed, up into that upper level of all the things that are in your life, that you have capacity for. And it made clear for me yesterday that most of us are over capacity. Have you ever told anyone or even yourself, yo, man, I ain't got it. I ain't got it. I don't have the energy. I don't have the capacity. I don't have the mental space. I don't have the money. Have you told yourself that? I've been telling myself that a lot lately. Probably over the last like 3 months, I've been telling myself, like, you ain't got it. You can't do it. If you don't want to go outside, don't go outside. Show yourself some grace and be okay with the fact that you're in a place where you can't add a whole bunch of stuff to your life, right? Unless it's serving you in some way. Obviously, you can't take on other people's issues. You can't do it. You can't do it. You're spiritually and emotionally like bankrupt. There's no deposits. And my question is, how do you get that back? Is it releasing things and people to free up some of that space in your life, whether it's relationships, whether it's, your work, whether it's extracurricular activities, whatever it is, whether it's, substances, alcohol, drugs, whatever. Like, what do you do? Because I know so many people, too many people that are overwhelmed with life, that are at capacity or over capacity with the things in their life. But I'm really curious is really how you're dealing with this. I talked about this last week about abandonment, and I think that's a subcategory of what I'm talking about today, talking about capacity, like the capacity for the traumas in your life. So that's what we're talking about, abandonment. But now I'm talking about overarching things that, you ain't got it. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? I had a couple of people last week told me how they are dealing with abandonment, and that some of these things that I was saying last week rang true for them. One woman told me that her partner, he has some issues with abandonment, and it shows up for him a lot, shows up in their relationship. And she's very supportive of him, which I thought was amazing. So, how are we dealing with the capacity issues? Are you removing things from your life? Not in a mean way, but are you, unloading a little bit? Are you unplugging from social media? Because that takes up the mental space, right? Social media is social media. You can put in 5 minutes, you can put a whole day in, but how much of your mental space is it taking up? And if you were to release or relieve yourself of some of those hours or some of those minutes that you're giving to, social media, to other people in that kind of digital space, what would that mean for you as, a whole human that wants to clear some of the space up, that wants to love on yourself more? I think it's important. I think it's important to address for you like a personal thing. How do I declutter? How do I declutter what my life is so I can show up in a better way? That's my question. As it pertains to capacity, yesterday I was just telling a friend that there was a time after my marriage ended, like after I moved out, which was now over maybe 16 months ago. So most of last year, moved out, got my own place. So most of last year, I was in a new space. After 8 years at that point, I was in a new space of relating and having my own space again. And it's been 8 years since I lived alone. So it was a new experience in that I was doing something, being married, all the things that come with being married. So I'm out of that space now. So I'm in a new space. And after my like in the fall, like after my mom passed, now I'm in that new space of like a marriage ending. Then I'm talking about, my mother passing, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was in a very low emotional place. And I'm pretty sure I became what some people call a collector. And in this space, in this context, I mean collector of people. So most of you know that I am a non-monogamous person. Typically non-monogamous person. Anybody I deal with, I talk to, partner with, in a relationship with, they know, my lifestyle. I tend to only date people who are in the lifestyle, and some I call it a love style, who are practice that love style particularly. It just works out better. When you're dating somebody that knows the love style that you practice. So yeah, I was telling my friend that I was a collector for a moment. Being that, having a relationship in and then have my mother die and all the emotions that went along with that, I felt void of, really void of, emotional connections. And I would, as they would come up for me, I wouldn't stop it. Like I wouldn't address capacity because I was so low on feeling that like I said, every experience I had, I was dating, I was getting into relationships with women, and they weren't all physical. I mean, it was, some were just, I just having that attention, just getting affirmed by put me in a place where, eventually I'm embarrassed to say, but I was dating or talk I was giving energy to like 15 women. And again, they weren't all like physical relationships or intimate relationships. I mean, most have weren't even local. So I was giving a lot of energy because I wanted to reciprocate it. So I was giving a lot of energy to a lot of women. And it wasn't because I was void of it wasn't physical touch. It wasn't really sexual in nature. Well, in most situations it wasn't sexual in nature. It was just the void, the lack. I was in a place of lack, and I became like this collector. And when I realized it, I stopped like adding people to my life because I was at capacity. But again, I'm fight, even though I'm socially at capacity, emotionally, I have this void. So it was kind of balancing each other out. But then when I realized, it was just one too many people. And plus, again, we talk about overall capacity. So there's, me being given all this energy away. I still got to work and I still got to do all the things that come with being, a grown-up human, a parent, so forth and so on, try to take care of myself, pouring into myself. So now, I still, I'm at capacity with my whole life, but emotionally, I'm still void. I'm still low. So again, like I said, these things are trying to counterbalance each other out. So I say all this to say, yeah, I became a collector, and I filled my life up with so much stuff. Then someone else died, my godmother, and it just became too much. It became too much because when I realized that I was collecting people, I start letting go of meaningful relationships, or I allowed meaningful relationships to end because I know that I was doing myself and that person a disservice by showing up in their life and essentially not being emotionally available. So I would, relationships ended, and there were still people around me dying. And, it was just a lot of death, a lot of stress. And I was over capacity. I just had too much going on. And when you involve people in all these things you have going on, in my opinion, it becomes unethical. And like I said, I practice ethical non-monogamy. So if I'm moving to a space where I feel like something is unethical, I have to address it even just within myself to say, you know what? You can't be that hypocrite. You can't stand on this soapbox here and then be doing a thing that you wouldn't, recommend or support that someone else is doing. That thing happening yesterday where it pushed me to where I felt like I was at capacity while I was talking to my friend. I said, you know what, I know the next thing that I'm gonna talk about. I'm gonna talk about a capacity and how we, sometimes we do it to ourselves, whether it's, through trauma, whether it's through, narcissism. Like some people just like collecting, for example, some people do it just for, to feed their ego. Especially people who practice a love style of non-monogamy. And notice I said non-monogamy, not ethical non-monogamy. They do it just to, add people to their life to say that they could. Happens a lot of time with men, but it also happens a lot. It happens with women as well. But that's is 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 often a man thing. That's what I'm talking about. I definitely want to shout out literally everybody. I do want to target men, black men of my generation because my ego really because I want somebody to talk to me. Like again, like I said, I don't want to preach. I don't want nobody to me. I don't want to be sold to, and I don't want to sell nothing. You ain't even gotta subscribe to this podcast, man. That's not that important. What's important is at some point I'm talking to brothers. At some point I'm talking to brothers. Right now I'm talking to you maybe, but at some point we talking, man, because that's what if whatever's to happen, that's where it's gonna start. It's gonna start with us talking. And I know brothers are over capacity. I know it. And to build on last week, brothers have abandonment issues. We'll talk about the other issues, but brothers have abandonment issues and they're over capacity. So, brothers, what y'all doing about it? Not because I'm questioning you, but because what y'all doing about it? Like, let me know. I got plants. That's what I be doing. I got plants. They dying though. Somebody told me the energy in my house might be bad. My plants is dying. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm curious, what are brothers doing? For you, maybe you can help somebody else. What are brothers doing in the place that we are in 2025? I know y'all over capacity, but I will say for all the brothers, sisters, and everybody else that are doing it, you're still doing it despite all of the things. And I applaud that because I'm gonna tell you, I will say this as overwhelmed I feel with life right now. I still do the things, but if it wasn't for my son, where I felt that that's a thing that's I gotta handle, rain or shine, all the things. I don't know how I would really be managing because I don't know if I felt that I have to. And, that's a fleeting thought, where I feel really down. Like, I don't want to do nothing with my life. I don't want to work. But I'm curious and I'm applauding and I'm celebrating that despite everything, you still doing it. As difficult as it is, you're still doing it. But I implore you, if you can, and I'm talking to you and I'm talking to myself, release some things if you can release things and not replace them, do it. Do it. Do it for yourself. Do it for your children. Do it for your state of mind. Do it for productivity at work. Do it for whatever dreams that you have. You take something off your plate, and you maybe you dedicate that time to fulfilling whatever dream you have, and that's something I can get behind and support. So definitely hit me up if that's an interest of you, if you just want to talk about it, because just the last two things that I've talked about, abandonment and capacity, I know people personally that struggle with it. So I know that there's a bigger subsection of people that just need to talk about it. That's what I'm gonna be doing for a little bit. Just trying. And as y'all can see, I done got into a very comfortable position because, like I said, I'm not trying to make this a space where it's stuffy and I gotta have the best sound or the best camera or the best lights. We're going no frills chill with it, and I really appreciate y'all just stopping by, checking me out. So with that, I want to say that I love you. Thank you. I forgive you. Please, please, please forgive me. Peace.